Hi there, Michael. Hi.
Carmen, nice to see you, and hello everybody else who's come in bright and
Yeah.
early.
Yes, they're getting into our room now. How are you? Everything okay?
Yeah, all good. I just
Oh, good.
enjoyed a session. And
Me
so,
too.
yeah, you enjoyed a
Were
session
you
too?
with Harry and right? We're so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Harry's quite an entertainer, and Ewan did very well as well. It was a good
Yeah,
one.
I saw you in the chat, so maybe I could feel that you know each other, don't you?
Yeah, we worked
Yeah.
together on the live classes project that Harry mentioned, which I'm going to mention in a second. We worked together on that. So
Mhm.
I know
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so people are getting in. So we'll start in short time.
Yeah, I see we've got 10 minutes until the start. Just a
Yeah.
sort of a tech question, Carmen. Does
Yeah.
Zoom still have the breakout room function on Hoover?
I don't think it has it on Hilva. I think you will be redirected to Zoom, and you are in Zoom, I think.
That's right, I'm in Zoom,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you are in Zoom, and I am in Hoover, so I can see the question and A and the chat and all. But maybe you can't. You don't see it, don't you?
No, I mean obviously I've got the chat open
All
on the
right, that's
phone,
fantastic.
so I'll be able to
Yeah,
monitor
yeah,
the
that's a
chat.
good idea. Me too.
Yeah, so I've got my little station organized with everything I need
All
to
right,
know. Just
so that's perfect.
I think there was a button before to put the attendees in breakout rooms. I can't see the button at
Okay,
the moment.
I'll ask Ryan in a minute
Okay,
because
you can ask him. If it
yeah, yeah.
can't
I'll
be,
ask him
then
right now.
it's not the end of the world, but it just would be good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No. Okay, I'll ask you, yeah, straight away. Mm.
I suppose one thing I should bear in mind, Carmen, is that when I'm sharing my screen, the attendees can't actually see me, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, this it's been some issue in webinars, not in meetings.
Oh, so
Now you
there.
host. Not you can see the button now. You're host now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if
So when
I
you
should we do a little rehearsal, and
yeah.
you can tell me if you can see me as I share my screen.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Perfect.
Oh, I can see I've got a breakout room button
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Now you can. Now you can magic.
Okay. I'm gonna share my presentation.
Okay. Here it is.
So can you see me?
Yeah. I can see you. I can see me, and I can see the screen as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the problem is in the mode of webinars. In webinars, you cannot see both the speaker and the screen on the PC or the computer. You can see the mobile app, but when the meeting, this is a meeting. This is not a webinar. So I can see you, and I can see your screen perfectly.
okay.
Perfectly,
So we chose
right?
the right format in the end then.
Yeah, yeah. We show this. In that way, you can do the breakout rooms.
Yeah, got you. Okay, I can
Yeah.
see people putting in the chat as well. Like I say, I've got my chat on my
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, sure. Let's
So
say
hello,
hello
it's
there.
Nefty Fortes
Yeah.
has said hello. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so
That
just
she's telling about that the webinar thing. Yeah, yeah, but I don't know if you knew Nefty, if it was a webinar or a meeting, because Ryan changes depending on the needs of the speaker. So it depends on Hoover. You're in Hoover, in Zoom, things like technology. Yes, that Nefty. That's what I say. That usually with webinars, you cannot do the breakout rooms in Hoover, right? That's the place. Okay, so that's excellent. So, well, we have still 5 minutes, 7 minutes left.
Yeah,
So
I think we're
maybe
all
we can
set.
start and make the introductions 2 minutes earlier, so you can have your time to.
Yeah, that's good with me, Carmen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's wait for the people to join us because they have come from another one and they maybe
yeah.
are doing their things.
Okay, so okay, that's fine. So you would do your spiel at 43, and then I start at 45, right?
Yeah. All right. Exactly. All
That
right. Could
works.
be
That
good.
works.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, a few more people are saying good morning in the chat.
Oh yeah, let's
Maria
ask them.
Santha said good morning all.
Yeah.
Hello there, Isaac, as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah, that's me. I'm going to remind them about homologación, that they have their question in the Q&A, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for all together.
Hello to Adrián in Asturias. A Beatriz from Oviedo. Hello there. Hello, Rosa, as well. Hello, Maria in Valladolid. Hey, Kevin.
She's right. She's, this Mariví, Michael. Mariví is one of the, teacher trainers and that care for us in Castilla y León. And she's always attending all meetings, all gathering of English teachers. And she's always ready to, she's very good. And she prepares for us fantastic meetings for teachers to learn and to go on with our teaching. It's fantastic. Mariví. Oh. Hello, Mariví.
Welcome, Mariví.
And Maria Antonia Castro. Hello, Maria Antonia. She's one of TESOL's souls. There. I can see people here. Fantastic. From everywhere. Oh, Santa Cruz de Tenerife. I wish I could be there sometime.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth, Carmen. Although I'd like to travel at the moment. I'd like to travel to any part, any part.
Exactly.
I'm very happy to travel to.
Exactly.
Anywhere
definitely.
Outside of my community.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. So
just
now
we're just a bit more patience. Maybe two more months of.
Exactly. That's it. Look here, Joanne from Menorca. Oh man, you see, a plane. Getting into a plane. Oh, what a sensation. Okay, so we are going to start in a minute. We are already 42 people, at least.
Hello, John in Menorca. So we've got, Menorca, both sets of islands covered as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Great stuff.
Right.
Carolina says she's lucky to live in Tenerife. Yeah.
Yeah. And from the Netherlands, we have people. Sandra Rodriguez coming from the yachts. All right. Yes, everywhere around. Fantastic. Fantastic.
So how are we doing? 43. Shall I let you say what you want to say, Carmen?
Okay. Yeah? It's okay. So we can start if you want. So the first thing is just to tell hello and welcome to everybody here to today's session, Michael Brandt's session, which is about speaking. It's like really getting your students speaking, just in case you are in the right room, the room you chose to come. Something I wanted to tell you before starting with the presentation of the speaker is that all these people that want to have a certificate or to get their homologación for education will have 2 questions in the Q&A section of this room. The first is already published, and then at the end of at the last part of the session, I will post another question that we would like you to answer that's necessary for getting your certificate, right, and your homologación, that is so important for many of you. All right, so now I'm telling you who I am. My name is Carmen Arias, and I am area coordinator for TESOL Spain in Castile and Leon North. We have divided the region is so big into parts. So there was south and north. Mine is north. And on behalf of TESOL Spain, I'd like to welcome you to this session by Michael Brand called, as I told you, really getting your students speaking. Michael is a teacher trainer, and now he's working for Pearson. He's taught in England and in Spain, all kind of schools, public, private, state-assisted schools, and all ages, all the range of ages of students, young learners, teens, and adults. And now he's very involved in teacher training, and his interests include collaborative learning, gamifying his classes, and the creative use of video in the classes. He's a teacher on the Elton Award-winning Pearson and BBC Live Classes project, which is about online lessons which bring together groups of teenage students from all over the world. I think this is a very, very interesting project, Michael, that you could share with us if you have time. So now I think that it's a time for Michael to start, and so I'll hand over to you, Michael.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Carmen, and thanks for your support in the session and in the build up to the session as well. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
sort of technically, I've got my computer in front of me. I'm sharing my screen. I've got my phone next to me where I've got the chat box through the Hoover app. I've got a few notes here, and also Carmen as well. Perhaps now and then I might ask Carmen to point something out in the chat box as well. Speaking of chat box, it'd be great for you guys to say hello first of all. And I'm going to give you a little a structure or a frame to use. Okay, so I'm asking you to put a sentence in the chat box following this structure. So, hello, I'm Michael from Miraflores, and I like riding my bike. Okay, that would be my sentence that I would put in the chat box. I'd love you all to put a sentence following that frame in the chat box. Once you put your sentence in, don't just you've not finished your task. I'd like you to look at what other people say in the chat box and see if you can find anybody that you've got something in common with. Okay, perhaps you're from the same place, or you share a name, or you have similar interests. Okay, so do feel free to type into the chat box. Okay, let's go. Now I'm going to refresh my okay, Noemi from Valladolid, who likes reading. David from Miranda likes playing rugby. I used to play rugby when I was younger, David, so I've got something in common with you there. Alex from San Sebastian, who likes swimming in the sea. San Sebastian is the place I've been to most in Spain. I think I've been there 14 times, half business, half pleasure. So I've got something in common with you as well. Francesca from Glasgow, and I like dancing swing. Lovely. I like dancing. I don't know how to dance swing. I'd like to learn though. Pablo from Gijón likes collecting Playmobil with his kids. Yeah, I'm more of a Lego man myself, but I like playing with the kids there, Pablo. Hello there, Emma, who likes to walk her dogs. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm not going to have time to read them all out, but I wish you all a very warm welcome. And I hope you found it interesting to find out who else you're in the room with and what you share with them in common. A task like this is very simple, but you can do in online lessons. And the idea is as well, having students write things in chat box and then looking for things that they've got in common, or things they agree or disagree with, etc. Okay. I'm now going to say something about myself, but again, I'm going to try and do it as a bit of a game. So these are 4 numbers, and they all relate to me. They all relate to something about me professionally. Okay. Well, one of them is a little bit more personal, let's say, but they all relate to something more or less professional. So again, I'm going to ask you to put in the chat box, have a guess what any of these numbers could mean about me. Okay. Do just fire in any ideas into the chat box. Right, okay, lovely. We've got 11 years in ELT, 11 years teaching English. Thank you very much, Kevin, Noemi, and Violetta. Okay, so something to do with professional numbers of experience. 39 years old, quite close. Not quite. Close enough that I'm not offended, let's say. 4 years in Spain. Okay, 4 countries taught in. That's pretty close. Oh wow, Maria has gone for the whole caboodle. She said, "You're 39. I've lived in Spain for 11 years. I've been a teacher trainer for 6 years, and hope to have 4 children." Brilliant, Maria. That's really, you've gone above and beyond there. Sort of a fast finisher task almost, guessing all 4. Okay, so I've been working for Pearson as a teacher trainer for 6 years. Before that, I was a teacher, originally of English and French. Sorry, of French and German, and then English and French, and then teacher training. I've lived in 4 countries. I think that was guessed, or perhaps it was 4 languages. 11 is I've been working from home for 11 months. Okay, so this is my little cave where I've been for the past 11 months. I'm not complaining though. Things could certainly be a lot worse, and this extended period working from home has allowed me to do more live classes than ever. And as part of this live classes project, which is teaching online classes to students around the world, I've taught students from 39 different countries, okay? And it's always wonderful to be ticking off new countries. I'm only 30, I'm nearly 37. So if those of you who guessed that as being my age, you know, that's more or less acceptable, and no harm done there, okay? To just, if the live classes project is something that you might be interested in, taking your students to one of these lessons, to be in a class with students from Slovakia and India and Mexico and 36 other countries that I've taught, do log on to the website, which is english.com/live classes, and you can find out more, maybe sign up. Okay, I guess I spot a few names from Harry's session in the first lesson, in the first session of the day along around activities for Zoom, and Harry's also a teacher on live classes as well. Okay, so both of us are on that project. So onto the session that we're doing today, which is about speaking, getting your students speaking. So let's talk about speaking. So at the risk of stating the obvious, it's an important skill for language learners. We normally ask about someone speaking when we want to know if they know a language. So the phrase goes, do you speak English? Okay. I've also brought in a few heavyweights to back me up. Success is often measured by people's ability to carry out a conversation, and even within a class, if you think about teaching your students, they'll have sort of put each other in little boxes according to their English level, and generally that's on how they speak. So that's how they judge each other. Okay. In terms of research, so researching, when Pearson researched their last general adults course roadmap, which I'll be referencing once or twice in the talk, we asked teachers to rank, if you like, different components of a course, and speaking came out at the top. Okay, certainly not to say that any of these areas aren't important, but when it came to ranking, speaking was number 1. Okay, and you know, if you've got a language center and you ask, or a PLS, and you're asking people, well, what do you need, doing some kind of needs analysis, more often than not, people will want to improve their speaking. And not always. The focus might be on getting a qualification. They might want to learn how to pass an exam, but speaking is very often high on the list. Perhaps at school they had lots of reading, writing, grammar focus, and they realized that their speaking and pronunciation needs a little bit of work. Okay. Okay, good. So now it's time for you guys to do a little task. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Menti. I'm being very patient with it loading. Hoping it's going to be with us in a second. Here we go. So if you would be so kind as to go to menti.com on your browser and type in this code 97502616, and there's a question which you can answer in a phrase, and in a short phrase. Can you give me one example of a barrier to effective speaking? So we all have this idea of how we want our students to speak, but getting there can be a challenge. What obstacles, what barriers can be, what pitfalls can there be from students on the way to being an effective speaker? Okay. Feel free to pop in an idea, as I say, in a short phrase. They should appear on our screen in a second, as once you've submitted them. Okay, so I'll just wait. People, thank you very much. Ashamed, low confidence. Let's have a look. Too focused on accuracy, prevents them developing confidence. Shame, self-confidence, sense of ridiculous. Okay, confidence is quite a common theme. Don't feel confident, shyness, don't know what to say. Thanks, guys. Opportunities, okay, they don't have enough time to practice speaking. Confidence, again, confidence is a big one, isn't it? We will talk about confidence during the session. It's one of the areas we're going to touch on, okay? Don't know how to express themselves. Okay, let's have a look. Can scroll down a bit. Shame, not enough general knowledge, afraid of making mistakes. Thank you very much. Not contextualized to really useful learning significance. Okay, people don't place enough importance on it. Okay, good. Thank you for your input. So as you can see, I'm just using this Mentimeter tool. It's a good way of getting people's opinions. Here I've done it allowing you to fill in a box with a short phrase. The word cloud option is quite nice as well, although more effective for words than sentences. There's ranking as well, so it's a good way of engaging students in online lessons. Okay, and I thank you for all of your ideas. Okay, I'm going to go back to my presentation now. So perhaps to add to what you've already come up with, perhaps they don't have the words for what they want to say. They know what they want to say, but they don't know how to say it. Perhaps they don't actually have any ideas about the topic. It's not something they've had experience on, and we're asking them to talk about it. As many of you said, it may be that they're shy and that they lack confidence, which are different things. Perhaps they lack confidence in their ability to carry out the task. Okay, so that's more self-efficacy, you would call it. Perhaps they're afraid of making mistakes. They see how mistakes are responded to, and they don't want to have that feeling. Perhaps I think some of you said that the activities are not light-hearted. They're too serious. Perhaps they don't actually have any time to plan what they want to say. Maybe they don't understand the speaking task, or maybe they don't understand the point of the speaking task. Why are you getting me to do this? Perhaps you've asked them to do some sort of interaction with another student, and they don't really have a reason to listen with one another. Okay, and I can see people have been adding comments in the chat as well. Francesca saying a chronic lack of confidence for most students, personality traits. Yeah, okay. And added to all of those barriers that we've just looked at, the ones that you came up with, the ones that I've shared as well, you've got the events of this year and last year, the sort of the new normal. This idea of often people are wearing a mask, which covers a lot of their face. It's harder to read their emotions. It's hard to build up a rapport. You've got the challenges in online classes. I think "you're on mute" is a phrase that's been said a fair bit over the last year or so. Put your camera on. People have got their cameras off, which is the case today. And communication is more difficult if you can't see the person you're talking to. You might have social distancing issues. They need to be further away from one another. So there are lots of challenges. And during the session, we're going to hopefully respond to some of them. Okay, good. So warming up, we did a quick warm up at the start. With this sort of guessing game. This is sort of things that your students can do with one another, the numbers game, the numbers referring about, personal details or professional details. Whereas I got you to elicit in the chat box, the students could do the speaking. So have you worked at Pearson for 6 years? Do you have 4 children? Are you 39? They can actually be guessing. And it's a nice thing to do because students find out about one another, we find out about the students, and then we can use what we know about them, and they can too in the future. Okay, so we build up a rapport, build up a relationship, we learn about one another. Okay, good. So first of all then, why are we doing this? So students seeing the point of exercises they're doing can help with their motivation. And we can start our lessons with a speaking objective. We're going to learn how to do something today. Okay, by the end of the lesson, you will know how to do this in English and have a speaking goal. Okay, so for example, in an online lesson, we could use the drawing tools. I use the Zoom annotation tools quite a bit. in my online sessions. And here I've done a little drawing, and I'm going to see if you can guess what we're going to learn about in the lesson. Okay. So I've done a little drawing using the Zoom. Well, you'll imagine this is one I prepared earlier. You'll have to imagine that I've just done the drawing in my lesson. What do you think we're going to be learning out today? Again, I'm looking at the chat box here. Right, movies, films, movies. Okay, film, twister. Okay, and if any of you can guess what the, you've got movie, I guess, but if you can guess what the other picture is, you get a bonus point. Okay, anybody get there's this sort of bus-looking vehicle with a guy who's interestingly dressed, holding up a bus in your pants. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Any more? Okay, you got a ha-ha, Kevin, from Francesca for that. Time's up. So Carolina's saying the time's up. So this was actually the first episode of Breaking Bad. It's the RV when Walters comes out of it in his underpants. If you've not seen Breaking Bad, it's worth a watch. Okay, but you're right. You got the goal of the lesson correct. The goal of the lesson is to talk about your favorite film or TV series. Okay, just as an aside, while we're not on films and TV, but while we're on annotation, it's good not only for the teacher to be using it, but of course for the students to be using it as well. And what I've done is I've divided up the board and have students drawing. They can also write, of course, in their area of the board. And in this particular activity, they had to guess what each other was drawing. It was a very simple activity, but the idea being that the annotation tool can be collaborative. Okay. Okay, good. So, establishing a clear speaking goal, then it can give meaning to the lesson and to the activities in the lesson. It can also mean students see progress. So having successful past experiences is one of the things that develops your confidence. So if you can make it clear to your students, look, and they can make it clear to themselves, I have learned how to do this, I have learned how to do this, I've learned how to do this, then those are positive experiences which should help to develop their confidence. Okay. Also means teachers can give praise. You can praise students on reaching the objective. So not just empty praise. Yeah, great, nice one, well done. You know, we could say, well, this was what we set out to do, and you've just shown that you can do it with your description of your film. I'm very impressed. Well done. We've achieved what we set out to do. Credible praise as well can improve confidence. And having a speaking goal doesn't prevent the other skills from being developed. The idea is that students can get the grammar and vocabulary they need to meet the goal. That can be worked on in readings, listenings, pronunciation. All of those things can be developed, but they can be done with a speaking goal in mind. I'm not saying every lesson we teach needs to be like this, but I'm also not saying that we don't have to just have one speaking lesson per unit, where you have your, you know, at the end of the unit, your speaking lesson, your writing lesson. There can be more than that. Okay. Okay, good. So we're going to have give an example. And the goal of this lesson is giving and accepting apologies. Okay. Being able to say sorry and being able to accept it. Okay, so let's see, as a warmer, we're going to see what students' thoughts are on apologies in different cultures. And I've got a little cartoon for you here, and I've hidden half of the cartoon. So you can tell me what the problem is here. There's somebody asking for help, and the gentleman, this rather well-dressed gentleman, he seems to be ignoring that request for help. Why is that? What's the problem here? Can anyone help me out with the cartoon? Again, I'm looking at the chat box on my phone. Politeness. Beatrice says politeness register, please. Thank you. Wolf, please. He didn't say sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh my phone once more. He didn't say sorry. Okay, so good. So you're getting the issue that's to do with politeness and register. Okay, there we go. So what he should have said is, excuse me, sir, I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I wonder if you would mind helping me a moment, as long as it's no trouble, of course. Okay, right, this is an exaggeration and it's a stereotype, right? But I think there's a kernel, there's a small grain of truth in there as well. Okay. So we can start by listening to some apologies and deciding if they're good ones or poor ones, and this helps us know what success looks like. Okay. Now, Coursebook has these, but you might like to do them yourself as well. If they're dialogues, you can act them out with your students. For example, I'm going to give you 2 apologies and you can tell me which is a good one and why. So the first apology, I can't come to your party. Second apology, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't come to your party. I'm busy that day. Maybe next time? Okay, so you could probably judge which is the good apology, but why? Why is there, I'll let you answer, tell me which one was the good apology and why it was better than the other one. I'm having a look at the chat box. Right, thank you, Joanne. Second one is best, polite, gives a reason, offers an alternative. Yeah, brilliant, Joanne. I think you've got just about all the success criteria there, because this activity helps us get success criteria for the task, trying to elicit from the students. So apologizing, giving a reason, proposing an alternative, as Joanne said, and also rising intonation for the question at the end, pronunciation wise. Okay. So we've looked at apologies across cultures and we've looked at models. We'll do some language work to give our students the language that they need, of course. And we can work on pronunciation too. So here's an example. Pronunciation is important and intonation is very important. More so in English, I think, than in other languages. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little activity here. I'm working in a coffee shop and a customer would like some coffee, and I get the coffee for the customer and I say milk and sugar. I say milk and sugar. So how did I sound? But what was I trying to convey? Okay, so how did I sound when I said milk and sugar? But what meaning was I actually trying to convey? Okay, we've got lots more reasons why 2 was the better apology. So I sound rude. Okay, so Maria's calling me rude. I did sound a bit rude or demanding, but what actually, given the context, what was I trying to display? Flat intonation should be rising intonation for a question. Yeah, Joanne. Uninterested. Yeah, so I was trying to ascertain if the person, trying to find out, trying to know if the person wanted milk and sugar, but that wasn't clear because of the way that I pronounced the words. The words were the same. So I should really have said milk and sugar, the rising intonation, as Joanne said. So I'm going to ask you guys to do a task. I'm actually going to put you into breakout rooms just for a couple of minutes so you can say hello to one another. I would like you to say milk and sugar to each other. And that's all there is. I mean, you can say hello, first of all, say your name, and then get onto the task. You're just going to say milk and sugar to each other, but you're going to take on an emotion. I've given you some ideas here: happy, grumpy, charming, boring, aggressive, sensitive, apologetic. Now, you might like to take a screenshot of those. You can use these ones, but you can also come up with your own. So you just need to be saying milk and sugar to one another, taking on one of these emotions or one of your own, and the other one tries to guess what you're conveying. Okay, so I'm going to try breakout rooms in this breakout room enabled Hoover session. We'll see what happens. I'll give you a couple of minutes in the room and then I'll bring you all back. Okay, so here I go to breakout rooms. Let me see, there are 85 of you. So let me create 40 breakout rooms. Let's see if I can create 40. Okay, open all, let's go to options, breakout. Okay, so the countdown time is all right. Okay, I'm going to open my rooms. You now need to click join room, okay, and start saying milk and sugar. Okay, let's see. We've got probably half of you been able to join a room, but the other half not. So I'm not sure if that's to do with technical capability and the fact that some of you have gone in through the Hoover app and not Zoom. I'm going to ask Carmen actually just to confirm that with me. Are you there, Carmen? Okay, I think because most of you have not joined, guys, that I'm going to have to close the room. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms to bring everybody back. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to row back on that idea, unfortunately, because I can see many of you were not able to join the breakout room. I don't know that's to do with the Hoover app or what it is, but I don't want to waste time. So we won't be using breakout rooms for that activity. Okay. However, we can do something similar. We can get somebody to volunteer. I wonder if should anyone wish to say milk and sugar with a certain emotion, then the others can guess. So if anyone would like to volunteer, you can turn on your mic and say hello. Would anybody like to have a go? You can just turn on your mic and say your name first of all.
Hello, I'm Deandra.
Deandra, very happy to have you with us, Deandra. Okay, off you go. Your best milk and sugar.
All right. Milk and sugar.
Okay, thank you, Deandra. Can anyone turn on the mic and have a guess? Or they can put it in the chat as well if you want to have a guess.
Excited.
Who's saying that?
Ekaterina.
Hey, thank you, Katerina.
Hello,
so Deandra, are you excited?
Yes, I am.
Very well done. Okay, that was well done, guys. Okay, well, we've just done one example. I know it wasn't a substitute for you doing this in pairs, but that's not to be today. Okay, thank you very much to Deandra and Katerina for your help with that task. Okay, good. I'm going to move on. Okay, so the next the final task then is the following. So the teacher gives out roles to pairs of students. So it could be a waiter spilling drink on a customer, a student not doing their homework, an employee late to work. The pairs, they have their little role situation, and they have to think of an excuse to build into their role play. And it can be plausible, believable, or far-fetched, hard to believe. Then they come up with their script and they practice. And then the students act out the dialogue in front of the class. The task for those who are watching, and there always should be a task for those not doing the speaking, is to guess which situation it was and whether the excuse was plausible or far-fetched. And then those who came up with the role play can confirm. Okay. Good. So that's an example of a sort of a goal-based speaking lesson, and the different stages involved. Just on the topic of goals, just on the topic of speaking goals, we're talking about having this sort of task-based lesson with a speaking goal, but there's other ways of looking at speaking goals. We can set our students a goal such as, I want you to participate in today's lesson at least 5 times, okay? Or if it's a student, this can be individual as well. So if it's a student who's really struggling to get involved today, see if you can get involved 3 times and tick them off when you do that. And then when they do that at the end, you could say, well, you did it. I saw you speak 3 times today. That's great. You're really making progress there. What up next lesson? Why don't you try and speak 5 times? Okay. So again, little baby steps as well to increase confidence. And it can be, the teacher can kind of impose these things, but we can also ask the students, okay, to set themselves a goal and then to be ticking off and take responsibility for that. Okay. Right, moving on. So what are we supposed to be doing again? Okay, so this idea of knowing what you're supposed to be doing in a speaking task and this is particularly important online, I think. Yeah, when I started, I set off the odd breakout activity, and I'd go into the breakout rooms, and it was like, well, what are we supposed to be doing again? And obviously I hadn't explained the task as clearly as I could have done, and the students didn't know what to do. So ways of getting around this and ways of making sure that the students are, have crystal clear what they're supposed to be doing in a speaking task. Okay, here's an example. I've taken a few activities from a lesson. If you look at task 3A, there's a vocabulary element. There is learning activities for learning how to say activities in English and collocations. So these collocate with do, go and play. These activities are contextualized in a reading text. And then finally, the students have to do a speaking task at the bottom, which is number 4. This one would be good for breakout rooms, okay? So let's just have a look at this task. And I would say, well, one approach would be, right, okay, great, guys. We're going to do question 4 now. Off you go into breakout rooms. We're going to put you into breakout rooms and then we'll talk about it, okay? That wouldn't be enough information. So what can we do to make this type of activity nice and clear to our students? So first of all, I probably need to explain follow-up question. So I'll get you to ask one of the questions, perhaps question 1, and I would answer as a model, and I'd say, well, I'd often go shopping. A follow-up question would be, who do you go shopping with? What shops do you go to? And then get them to ask me questions 1 and 2, and in the chat box, the rest of them can brainstorm follow-up questions. Okay, that's one point. There are other things that students need to know here. So they need to know how long they'll have in breakout rooms, how many follow-up questions to attempt in questions 1 and 2, and perhaps who's going to note down their conclusions in question 3. So I like to indirectly nominate a student. So for example, the student with the earliest birthday writes down the conclusions from question 3, okay? And then they of course have to speak to each other and say, when are you born? To find out whose role that is. So there's quite a lot of setup here, but if dedicating a minute or 2 or more to a free speaking activity means that the students know what to do and have the tools to do it, then so much the better. And this is, as I say, particularly important in online classes and in breakout rooms. And also, if you give specific instructions and explain what you're expecting the students to show you after the task, they're more likely to take it seriously. So again, how can we ensure understanding? Different ways. So I can give you the instructions and then I can ask the students to type them in the chat box. So I'm checking that they understand. I can get a student to repeat orally what it is they're supposed to be doing, so I can check they understand. I can get the students to take a screenshot of anything they might need on the screen that they'll need in their breakout room. Or I can even make an activity out of the instructions. So guys, and again, I'm going to monitor the chat box here. I'm going to give you some instructions for a speaking task, and I want you to try and remember them. Okay, I need to try and remember those instructions. Okay, here go the instructions. Do exercise 4 in breakout rooms. Ask each other questions 1 and 2, and ask at least 2 follow-up questions. Then see if you agree on the top 5 activities. The person with the earliest birthday writes down your conclusions for question 3. You have 8 minutes in the breakout rooms to do this task. Okay, so I've given you your task. It's a lot to take in, actually, quite a lot of instructions to take in. So we're going to do just a little bit of checking, and we're going to see if any of you can remember what the instructions were. So I've got my little gap fill here. Please do go to the chat box and see if you can type in any of the answers. Could be A, B, C, D, or E, but let me know which one you are answering, okay? I'm monitoring. Okay, good. Thank you, Isaac. Isaac says A4. Okay, well done. Annabelle says B2. Ask at least 2. Yeah, there was a word there as well. 2 what? D, earliest birthday. Thank you, Francesca. Kevin, 8 minutes. Okay, I think you've got all of them between you. Yeah. C, if you agree. Thank you, Annabelle. B, 2 follow-up. And it was Rosa who said agree. Well done. Okay, good work. So I tried to make the instructions a bit clear. I could then pop that in the chat box. And then when you're in your room, it's not going to be, yeah, what was we going to do again? Exercise 4 or something? Just you asked me. They're like, no, we know what we're doing, and we know what we're supposed to show at the end, and who's writing down, you know, the conclusions from question 3. Okay, so it's a way of setting up a speaking activity where they know, just to ensure that they know what they're doing. Okay, good. Continuing on with the session, and I've entitled this next bit, "It Takes Two to Tango, getting them listening." So getting students listening to each other is obviously part of interactive speaking. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, listening is key to that conversation, but it should also be the case for non-interactive speaking, like students giving presentations. That's a non-interactive speaking. But we want all of the ones who are not speaking to be listening, okay, and listening well. So if you think of an interaction, if you think you're having a conversation, this is how it should work. So you're talking, it's your turn to talk at the moment, and well, let's say I'm talking, and you're listening to me. Okay, so I'm talking and you're listening to me, and while you're listening, I'm actually paying attention to your reactions. I'm paying attention to your reactions, and doing that can allow the conversation to develop. Okay, so it's a real two-way street. Okay, there's more to it, of course. So I want to look at this idea of practicing questions. There's many times in lessons when we get students asking each other questions, but do they always have a good reason to listen to the answers? Okay, so different things that we can do. What can we do to get them to listen to one another's responses? Well, one thing that we looked at in the last activity was to get them to ask follow-up questions. You can't really ask a follow-up question. You have to have a detail to ask a follow-up question. So if you will say, ask one follow-up question or ask two, well, you have to listen to be able to do that, okay? Another way is to add in a task. If you think back to the start of the session when I asked you to introduce yourselves and then asked you to find somebody you had something in common with, that was a task around what other people were writing. Yeah. So, for example, Monday morning, you say to the students, right, ask each other what you did at the weekend. Fairly common speaking activity, and they're sort of saying, well, I went to the cinema, saw my friends. Well, at the moment, it's probably I stayed at home. But if you do this every Monday, well, then, you know, they'll probably be trotting out the same things, and will they actually be listening to each other's answers? So just a small twist on that would be to say, get into group of 3, say what you did at the weekend, and decide who had the most fun weekend or the most boring weekend, or who did something that everyone else would like to try. Immediately, the creation of that task makes it more likely they're going to listen to one another. Okay. Moving on, a very simple thing to do is to get them to make notes on what the other person's saying and then report back. Okay, making notes is a useful skill as well, jotting down the key details. And again, you can give them more direction in their note making. So something that you agreed with that your partner said or disagreed with. Okay. Other ways of getting them to listen to each other in speaking activities is, imagine you've got a list of questions. Rather than asking them, you can have students just answering a question to their partner, and the partner guesses which question they were answering. And again, you have to really carefully listen to be able to do that. So were you answering this one? And then they say, yeah, I was answering that question. Okay, so you guess the question from the answer. I'm not saying we should stop actually asking questions, but it's a twist. Okay. And another way to get them to listen to each other is to get them to assess one another, of course, to grade their partner. That can be something as complicated as grading the vocabulary, the grammar, did they respond to the question? They would need to be taught how to do that, of course. So you might do the task with another student and talk about it. You know, they can't just assess one another off the bat. Or it could be something like, did you give 2 supporting details? So sometimes in exams, like the first part of the exam, they'll ask you questions like, you know, where do you live? Why are you learning English? And they're not supposed to be because I like it, but similarly, it's not supposed to be a massive monologue. So saying, does an answer have 2 details? And they assess each other for 2 details in an answer, for example. Okay. Another thing you can do to get students to listen to one another is this idea I picked up in Teaching as a Subversive Activity, which is a fascinating book. It's kind of a book about a question-based syllabus and critical thinking, which is very much ahead of its time. It's 50 years old, but we're talking about critical thinking a lot today. But anyway, one of the ideas in there around debates is the students debate, and one student puts forward an argument, and the other student can only respond to that argument once they have restated it to the first person's satisfaction. Okay. So, you know, should we, well, eating meat is a bit of a weakness for me, but I know there are lots of disadvantages. It's not very good for the environment. So imagine if you say, eating meat, should we ban it? And I say, oh, I do. I say, well, my argument is, I think we should ban meat because it uses up lots of water, and there won't be any left. And then the other person says, so you're saying eating meat could cause water shortages? Yes. Well, on the other hand, okay, so you have to restate what the other person said, and to do that, you've got to listen to what they said. Okay, so that's something you can build into debates to try to encourage them to listen to each other. Okay, good. In terms of speaking and reacting to each other speaking outside of class, so if we think about it, we try to do lots of speaking in class, and we think, well, we want to take advantage of class time to do speaking, and perhaps other skills we might focus on more outside of class. We can get them speaking outside of class, of course. Homework doesn't just have to be written. So an example is, in my online classes, I've had them do recordings outside of class on Padlets. Okay, they can also do these in class as well, but outside of class is an option too. So these Padlets are kind of fairly well-trodden well-trodden ground, I would say now. Most people know about it and have used it. If anyone hasn't, it's a wall which you give the people the URL for, and they can write posts on it, upload photos, videos, Word docs, PDFs. It's a good collaborative tool with lots of uses. And as I say, one function which you may not have tried yet is the recording function. So when I've used this in class, I've shown my students how to use it. So I've actually gone to a Padlet, clicked on the pink button to speak, clicked on the 3 little buttons for options, and clicked on voice, and done a recording, and demonstrated that. And then the students can add their recordings to the Padlet as well. Okay. And one of the useful features of Padlet is that it now has a comments function, so the students can comment on each other's posts. That's what makes it collaborative. Okay, so the students do the speaking task on the Padlet. In this case, talking about their favorite film. You make sure you have the comments turned on, and they can comment on each other's recording. So you'd need to give them guidance on what they were supposed to say. So it could be find somebody who's seen a film that you've seen or that you want to see, and why. We can have them assessing according to criteria. We can have them writing the favorite part of what somebody said, 3 words that they'd learned, writing a bit that they didn't understand, a question that they have. We might stipulate you need to write on 3 people's recordings. Okay, so again, getting them to speak online, and then giving them a reason to actually listen to each other's speaking, rather than saying, go off and listen to what each other has said. Okay. Right, good. I can see, I'm just a quick check of the chat box. Carmen adores Padlet. Rephrasing is really creative, Maria. Okay. Okay. Right, onto the next section of the talk, which is to do with recording and feedback to improve speaking. I wonder if anyone remembers one of these. Has anyone ever used one? Has anyone ever used one of these beasts? They're quite hefty. Let's have a look. Oh, some of you you've never used one. Obviously, you're all very, very young in this session, because I actually used these when I started teaching my GCSE French. Someone says I don't even know what it is. Kevin says I was born in the 90s. So in England, these were It's the standard tape player and recorder for the language classroom. So I learned with this, and I was also, when I started my teaching career, I would record oral exams on one of these. Okay, so it's actually, recording's much easier now. You don't have to lug around one of them. Everyone can record. We've got a phone. We can all make videos as well, although that's a topic for another day. Recording is very, very easy. WhatsApp has got a record function. Phones come with a free recording app normally. So it's simple for teachers and students alike. Okay. And there are lots of reasons for students to record their speaking. There are lots of reasons. If students record their speaking, they have a record of their speaking, just in the same way they might have a writing portfolio, they can have a speaking portfolio. Recording speaking means that they can notice mistakes in what they say when they play it back to themselves, and notice gaps. So if you listen to yourself speaking, say, well, I can see what I was trying to say there, but I said it in a simpler way, or I didn't have the word. This is what I need to learn. Yeah. You can also see yourself making progress. So if you're making a speaking portfolio and you listen to yourself last year and this year after years learning English, you say, wow, I've improved, you know, because it's obvious to see that with writing, but speaking sort of disappears. So shows progress. And remember, confidence was something that we mentioned a lot at the start. Okay. And if you see yourself making progress, then that helps you grow in your confidence. It's a way of practicing speaking outside class. As I said, speaking doesn't just have to be in the classroom space. We can have them recording themselves at home. Sometimes you're more likely to, well, you are more likely to make an effort if you think if you're recording something and you know you're going to have an audience, and you say, well, I'm going to try and do this properly. Maybe you know, that you might have the odd pair at the back of the class doing a speaking task that aren't taking it that seriously. And also it's a way of repeating a task, getting students to do it more than once, okay? And better the second time, all right? So lots of reasons, I think, to bring in recording as a way of improving student speaking. So different ways of using recording. You might have students do a speaking task at the start of the lesson without having been given any input. They record it, if they're allowed phones, for example. Then you do your lesson, and you develop the language, and then they do the task again, and it's undoubtedly going to be better the second time. They record that and they listen to both, and they see just how far they've come in a lesson. And again, confidence building, showing progress. Other ways of using recording are you do your speaking task, you record it, and then you go home and you transcribe it. So you write down everything that was said, and then you can get the students to correct that. So when they'll look at what they said and say, I think I missed a word there, or that was the wrong word. Actually, it's just a way of noticing, again, gaps and corrections in their own speaking. Okay. I can see people are putting in the chat box their own ideas for recordings as well. Thanks very much, Chris, for your idea. I can see it's been popular. Maria liked it. Okay, great. Appreciate that, Chris. Recording can also be used to rehearse a presentation. If you're going to be doing a speaking presentation, you can record yourself delivering it and then listen back. The teacher could also give feedback on that, depending on how much time they have. And a link to this idea of recording is for a teacher to give oral feedback. So one thing, when you record, there's lots of ways to grade a piece of writing, okay? But one thing you can do is actually, rather than giving written correction, talk about it and send it to the student and try to have the student correct it themselves. It can be much more of a learning experience. Too many times, again, when I started, I would correct writing and I'd realize that students wouldn't pay any attention to wouldn't pay enough attention to my corrections, and had to think of ways of making that happen. Okay. Okay, good. I can see we've got about 12 minutes left. I'm going to move on to feedback, which is the next part. So giving students feedback on their speaking is important to help them to improve. Different ways of doing this. You can give immediate feedback or delayed feedback. You don't always want to give immediate feedback, in the sense that you don't want to cut students off if they're in the middle of a fluency-based speaking task. So one thing you can do is, when you're monitoring students speaking, you can write your notes, write your feedback on a little piece, a post-it note, and stick it on the desk next to them, and they can have a look at it when they finish the task. Or you can go around monitoring and put the put the mistakes on the board, and then when everyone's finished, they can all try and correct them. Okay, so that's an example of delayed feedback for speaking. Students as well can, when they're getting feedback on their mistakes, they can actually write them down. And so we're keeping a list of mistakes they're liable to make and corrections of those mistakes, and then trying not to make those mistakes again. I always say to my students, making mistakes is fine. It's a gift to the class. You know, if you didn't make mistakes, I wouldn't be in a job. There'd be no need to be here. It's okay to make mistakes. It's absolutely fine. But we're going to try not to make the same mistakes again and again. So that's a reason for having a checklist, okay? And you can give the partners can actually look at each other's checklists and try and spot them when each other is speaking, okay? And I would say the golden rule when giving feedback as well on speaking and in general, and not only in ELT, in teaching and, you know, and well, perhaps in other areas of life, is to respond to content. So the example here I've got on the screen is, I like it learning English, it's fun. No, 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 it's fun. It is fun, subject. So imagine a student said that to you and that was your response. You say, well, they're trying to communicate something so enthusiastic and you've sort of gone and, you know, sort of crushed it. I say, yeah, it is fun. And it's useful. You can use it to talk to people all over the world. I'm glad you like learning English. So you can, you know, just rephrase, say it correctly yourself. You might then go and give them some more practice, because it is true that if you have a chance to right your wrong, you're more likely to remember it. Okay, so you can give them a little activity with the subject. But responding to content's really, really, really important in the first instance. Okay. Another thing to say about feedback, sometimes feedback is equated with error correction, and it partly is that, but it just as much, or even perhaps even more importantly, it's so important to point out things that they've done well. So if they've done a speaking task, you find things that vocabulary that they've impressive vocabulary they've used, pronunciation, how they've responded to the demands of the task. Remember we spoke about success criteria, and that again will grow their confidence as well, and that it's being pointed out to them what they're doing well. I remember when I corrected going back to correcting teen writings, I would make little lists of mistakes that were common to the class and have them correcting the common mistakes, because I thought, well, they're all making them, and I think it was useful. But then I added to that, making a list of things that they'd done that I was pleased with, and they had to read those and try and work out why I was pleased with it. If it was because of the grammatical construction, the impressive adjective. These were C1, B2, C1. So I mean, they were pretty good. And the students would, when they saw their own work on that piece of paper, they would, you know, stand taller, and you'd get their parents would come up and say, oh, Javier was so happy that you used his work as an example. You know, even used like whole essays and said, right, what was good about this essay? Using their stuff as an example in front of the rest of the class can have a massive impact on their confidence. And it's something I think we can remind ourselves to do as often as possible, actually. Okay, good. On to the last section. We're doing okay for time, which is making practice fun with games. I'm sure you will have your go-to speaking games that you, okay, we can't continuously throw buckets of cold water at them when they make mistakes. It's a lovely way of putting it, Maricel. And yeah, I fully agree with that sentiment, fully agree, okay? So just to talk through a few, Carmen says 7 minutes left. Yep, I'm on it, Carmen. I think I can fit it in, no problem. Just talking about a couple of games, I'll just let you sort of skim the page before I talk about it. Okay, hopefully you've got the gist, which is it's an activity we have to try and speak for 30 seconds. And there are cards about the different things you need to speak about. But the point I just want to highlight here is it's kind of appropriate, if you like, for mixed abilities. So you can get a point for doing a slightly easier task, and then extra points for doing a slightly more difficult task. Okay, so this is a way that you can make a speaking task accessible for different ability levels. Okay, speaking for 30 seconds, and then you have different sort of levels of achievement, if you like, awarding different numbers of points for. Okay, so this is a kind of game I think can be adapted. Other ways of sort of gamifying, if you like, speaking tasks is to use a kind of blockbuster grid like this, where you've got two teams, one's trying to get across, one's trying to get down. This is from a course, but you could easily make one of these yourself. And you can see I've chosen topics here which are related to the session that I'm just delivering now. An example for higher levels, I'm going to just give you an example of a speaking game for higher levels. Okay, I'm going to play you a clip, okay, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay, so I'm just going to check that I'm sharing my sound. Just going to go down share screen. Yep, I was sharing. It's under control. I'm going to play you the clip first of all, then we'll talk.
Can you tell me about one of your work days?
On a camping trip with my family and I went moose watching, and we really did. And we drove out, it was in Canada, we drove out in the middle of nowhere, and we sat in a darkened forest for 6 hours waiting for a moose to appear, because my mom wanted to see the moose.
And did you finally see one?
No, we did not.
What did you see any animals at all, or any wild things? I mean, did you see like any like different? You're in the woods, right?
Yeah.
So things are growing around plants, vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see a fern, you'd see a zucchini, you'd see the things growing in the forest.
Okay, good. So here we go. So this is from the Jimmy Kimmel Show. He does lots of word games, actually. He's a pretty good source of stuff for their ELT classroom. So here they had words they had to try to kind of weave into their conversation, as it were. And this is something we can do with a speaking task for more advanced students. Oops, next. But it does need a little bit of adaptation. Okay. Or it needs clear instructions as well, as to rather than just try to fit these words into conversation. So that you've got your two sets of your two students, and they have a conversation topic, and they have a list of words that they need to include in that conversation. You can't see your partner's words. Okay. How many of your words can you use? You get a point every time you use a word. But how many of your partner's words can you spot? If you spot, you say, well, that was one of your words, zucchini, as he said, then you get a point if you guess it right. But you also lose a point if you guess wrong. So, well, that was one of your words, and it wasn't, then you lose a point. So you can try and throw off your partner by saying other impressive, unusual words, which they might guess as being on your list, but which aren't on your list, okay? So give it a go with your advanced students. Again, it doesn't have to be a word, it could be a sentence or a phrase that they have to try to weave in and spot. I was going to get you in breakout rooms for just 2 minutes to have a quick go on this, and it's not going to be possible just because I've tried it, and for some reason not everyone is able to join through Hoover. So I'm sorry you're not going to have a go at this now, but perhaps give it a go outside of class. And these would be two examples of lists, okay? The words that they had to get in, okay? Okay, good. So that kind of brings me to the end of the session. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got one or two ideas for getting your students speaking, a way of making them feel more comfortable speaking, a few ideas for class. I've used the course roadmap in my session. It's a general course for adults. If you'd like to learn something more about it, you can go to pearsonelt.es. Someone said, I'm so doing this on Monday. Pleased to hear that, Kevin. Games are a fantastic addition to our lessons, adding them to my repertoire. Thank you, Muriel. Finally, I'll point you in the direction of the Teacher Training Hub at Pearson, which is where you can find out about any webinars that we're doing. We've got a series on at the moment with some next week. We've got a blog on there. We update that every week with new content. And there's a Pearson Academy, which is all the online training that we do. You can watch those sessions do quizzes on them and get certificates too. Okay, so the Teacher Training Hub is another area to have a look at. Good. I'm going to draw it to a close there and say thank you very much to everyone for coming, and thank you to Carmen too, who's about to speak.
Yes, just to say thank you, Michael, for this very useful talk. I think that many people got here lots of ideas about how to make them speak. This is one of our goals, definitely, for a teacher. And thank you so much, Michael, indeed, for your. So people asked me if you were going to be so kind as to share the slides, and I thought that you were going to. So maybe you can write a link here or somewhere else where we can find it.
I'm very, very happy to share the slides. The best way of doing that is just to email me. So my email address, I'm actually going to write it in the chat. It's michael.brand@pearson.com. So if you just, hi Michael, went to your session, can I have the slides? You know, I will obviously send them to you. Michael, in the chat box as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yes, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much.
Okay, pleasure, Carmen. Lovely.
Okay, so really nice to meet you around physically, right?
Yeah,
seeing
that's
you
right.
on face.
Hopefully in a few months. It'll be a pleasure.
Okay, pleasure for all of us. Bye-bye, and thanks to everybody for attending our session. Bye-bye.